All right, what's going on, NavalX community? Super excited to be here. As you know, I'm Mohawk Matt, always doing my thing with NavalX. I have got two configuration management experts inside the Navy family. What is configuration management? I don't know. I just have great hair and do these awesome videos. I got two folks that are going to explain that. First, we'll introduce them. Crystal Reed, how's it going?
I'm doing great. How's everybody out there?
Doing great. Crystal, tell us, and Nick, we're not ignoring you. We'll get to you. Don't worry. And Crystal, tell us who you are and what you do at NAVWAR.
Well, I'm Crystal Reed. I work at NAVWAR headquarters in San Diego. I'm actually the Configuration Management Technical Authority, which means that I am responsible for policy, process, technology, and people. So we make sure that configuration management is spanned across our enterprise so that we can be cohesive as a unit. Over.
I imagine that's important in the Navy. Also, today we've also got Mr. Nick Friji. What's going on, Nick?
Not much. How's it going with you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm excited to learn about all the CM stuff. And I know you know a little bit about it. Why don't you tell us what you do in the Navy and your role?
Yeah, no problem at all. So, Nick Friji, I work within the NAVWAR Chief Engineer Office. So, I'm one of our assistant chief engineers in charge of what they call mission architecture, just a title. But underneath me, I have a couple divisions. So, one of them cyber, and I'm actually going to talk a little bit about how cyber plays in with CM. The other area is actually creating architecture for the Navy. For this discussion, though, I'm also in charge of engineering processes. So how do you go through and do engineer on these big naval systems? And we start talking about IT systems. So that falls underneath my realm to help set that out for all of NAVWAR and being consistent across all the other NAVC, NAVAIR, other commands that are out there. So that's like my primary job and role out here is to enable those processes and those tools and those procedures. And you see Crystal here is like one of the specific areas we're talking about today. So trying to drive that digital change, that digital thread, that's my thrust.
That's fantastic. How important, since we are talking about CM configuration management, from your perspective at your level, how important is CM to what we do every day?
Very important. And it's interesting you're talking about, what is CM? What is this thing? And I'm going to have Crystal, she'll go through probably a lot more detail than I do. She lives and breathes it every day. But we start talking about, and I'll put it in context of that, the cyber I was just talking about. We start talking about, and you see this came out with just the latest, if I look at, in the news, any of the cyber threats that are out there, and you're going to go, how's it impact? Well, one of the first questions you usually are going to have is, where is it out in the fleet? Where is it in any business? You'd be like, oh, do I have that problem? Well, guess what that is? That's CM. CM will help you answer that kind of question. There's ways to go see live on what's happening in your network and your systems, but the first thing and why it's really important is you should understand what did you put out in the field? What did you field? And so that's kind of why it's super important in what we're doing right now. From just if nothing else, from a cyber perspective. Other reason why I think it's really, really important is, we're being asked, and our role within the Navy is to start to, we got to get our speed back on how we develop our systems. So in order to do that, I look at CM from two different perspectives. For one is to maintain that cyber kind of perspective, and we should know what our baselines are. And we can talk a little about baselines in a little bit, but it's like, what do we have out there? So I can actually then do changes to it quicker. There's nothing worse in my career. I've been in the Navy for 26 years, never actually served myself. Instead, I went right out of college and working for a small company into working at the labs. And, you start working on a project and you think you had the latest information in front of you, only to find out that you didn't. Or you're testing against something and going, hey, I got that configuration. Then you go field it and things don't work. And you found out I didn't have the right configuration. I just wasted all that time, all that effort, all that energy. So that's CM. You want to go get the latest, greatest of a configuration or information. Well, that's what I'm talking about when I do CM. It starts to hinge into data management, all these other terms, but at the highest levels, you got the right information in your hand. So I can see if there's a jive engineering or a cyber kind of a threat comes in. other reason why I've been very interested in is if you look at, the threats that we have out there and how much intellectual property is being lost within just DoD, federal. I believe it's in the trillions of dollars now a year. It's a booming business. So how do you maintain and make sure you've got not only the your engineers and everybody knows they got the right information, how are you protecting that?
Yeah.
So, and again, if somebody else has already solved the problem, I want the next person to take that problem and then leapfrog it. So again, you got to have the right information, make sure you got the right, intellectual property safe. So to me, those are like two of the big things you do with configuration management.
Okay. That sounds very critical to what we do.
Yeah. just a little.
Just a little bit. No, definitely. And Crystal, this is your entire world. You live and breathe this stuff. Let's talk about a playbook. But before we do, for those that aren't aware, NavalX has playbooks. And a playbook is essentially a recipe or a guidebook that you can kind of follow for whatever we're talking about. So, Crystal, talk to us about configuration management playbook that you've been working on.
Well, I tell you, I know that not everybody on the audience may understand configuration management. So let me break it down a little bit to kind of simplify. And I'll take it a little bit out of the naval terms or military terms, right? So when you say playbook and you have a recipe and it says how to do things, ideally for the Navy, if you have a recipe, and let's say you take all the ingredients off of the shelf and you put it on the counter, and you go through and you start measuring all these ingredients and you're saying, okay, I'm ready to bake whatever this is, right? Well, if you don't have the instructions that say, how am I supposed to put all these things together? Then all you have is a bunch of ingredients. Well, configuration management is the glue. Configuration management is the instructions on how to connect all these things together. So that as you're going through the recipe, it says, if you have flour and you're going to add sugar, you add this much, and this is when you add it. This is how they connect. This is how they work together, right? So if you were to take that analogy and turn it over to a product side, right? A product is, what is this thing that we're trying to build? What is this thing that we're trying to make, right? It could be an IT system. It could be just software applications. It could be some hardware. And when we, most people, I guess the common theme today is your phone. Your phone is a combination of hardware and software, and it's also an IT system, right? So how do all these things work together? Well, configuration management is what's used in order to put all these together. And when Nick was talking about configurations, the configuration means how much or what size. So in a recipe, you would measure how much you would add flour, like 2 cups or a tablespoon of sugar, right? Well, if you're working products, that how much could be the configuration of what's the size? How much does it weigh? What does it actually do? What are we trying to get this thing to behave for us, right? And while you're trying to put all these things together, that's what configuration is. So let's take a step back. Let's say that we take it out of the realm of recipes and products. Let's drive this home a little bit. Everyone has rooms in their house. You have furniture in each one of those rooms. Each one of those rooms are configured so that your couch fits on the certain wall, your chair fits in a certain space, and your TV can actually mount to the wall big enough to hold that TV, right? So if I were to break it down for a civilian side, that's configuration. Where did I put the couch? How big is it? And against which wall? North, south, east, west, left, right, right? Well, when we're working naval products, we're doing exactly the same thing. We have certain products that are providing capability, and we want to make sure that if we are applying configuration management, that we have taken into consideration how big is this, how much does it weigh, where is it going to go, and what's the information or what's the data that describes what this thing is. So if I were to read about it, I'd know exactly what it is. So let's say you get a phone. What do you get? You get a user's manual. In that user's manual, it says, this phone will do these things for you. You can find the parts here. You can hit the website here, right? Has all that pertinent information. Well, configuration management makes sure that all that pertinent information is collected, that it is entwined, and that it feeds the user. So from a naval perspective, we would take all that information, what we call product definition information. We'd make sure that it's packaged, that it's all linked together from the systems engineering side, making sure that we have program management oversight with that logistics portion. What's logistics? It is making sure that that user manual has been created so that someone that reads it can actually use the item. That's what the guidebook is about. The guidebook walks you through actually following the recipe, telling you how to put it together, and saying that if you are working on something in particular, this is how it gets all connected so that you have that data stream together, which we call today as a digital thread, right? That digital thread is information from the developer, i.e. in our program offices, and it is continuous through the time that it is given to a user. Within the Navy, this is what Nick was talking about, deploying it or installing it or in a platform, right? There's a place it goes. There's a customer, and our customers are the Navy. So as a customer, you're receiving this information or receiving the capability. So it has a lot of similarities to public civilian world, you know, and then we translate a little bit to the Navy world. Okay. As a civilian world, you go to the grocery store, right? The grocery store has a lot of things on the shelf. Now, you don't go in the grocery store and buy everything just because it's there, right? You buy what you need, right? Well, that's what we do for the Navy. We make sure on the configuration management side that you are getting what you need without having to buy everything off the store shelf.
Wow.
Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Nick, I think you have the right person for the job.
Yeah, she knows a little bit about the topic. That's why I said, I'll hit some of the top,
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, Chris, that's the greatest configuration management explanation I've ever heard. And that's just fantastic. So we do have a question here.
Sure.
Someone I think you know. We got Jonas Lazo from NAVWAR. How big is the configuration management community of practice across the Navy?
That's very large and wide. I have a lot of folks that participate between the whole naval syscoms. And if you're not familiar with naval syscoms, there's several different entities within the naval enterprise that produce some kind of product or service for the Navy, right? So you have the Naval Sea of the world, which handles our fleet, and you have the naval facilities that handles our buildings, right? And you have naval supply that supplies whatever that maintenance or whatever those parts are to all these great little products that we're giving to the fleet. For us, we work on IT systems. We have information, right, that we're trying to make sure that is contained and unpenetrable, right? Because we want to make sure we're working our cyber side. We also have NAVWAR. They work airplanes. Okay. All of these different entities all work together, and I have representatives from every single one of these that are focusing on CM. So what I do as a host for that community of practice, it's a combination of those practitioners, people are actually doing these things every day, between a community of interest, those folks who might be interested or that have a regular day job, but likes to understand how configuration management impacts their lifestyle at work. So yes, it's very large. I have hundreds. Nick?
Yeah. And I was going to go on top of that too. So those are kind of like the CM experts, or like Crystal's getting at. There might be some people that have it as a side job.
Right.
What I really want to drive, and I have for a large part of my career, is this community of practice should be a lot larger than that. All the way from the program manager down to specifically the engineers. And a lot of times I'll use the term transparent configuration management, because if it's being done right, you have access to the information. You have confidence in that recipe that we talked about, that you're going to get the cake at the end, not the burnout brownie that you might be working on today.
Right.
So that's it. So it's much larger. I think that's why it's really important in here that we have the guidebook will lead you down and tell us how we do this. But I think it's a really bigger question to get as an audience. How would I go and use this outside just a traditional CM? It's not an extra bolt on. I'm trying to integrate this in and throughout. It's a key engineering process thing that ties it together, like Crystal's talking about.
Wow.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's really an important statement, Nick. Trying to make sure that it is baked in, i.e. that it is the foundation for everything that we do within the Navy, to make sure that, as Nick says, that cake is a cake, not a brownie.
It tastes of brownie, but it might be burnt.
Right.
Didn't follow that last step. That was perfect.
We've got another one from Benito Hobson here. I love the CM analogies. Please talk. Can you talk about your process for introducing innovative technology and capabilities into an existing baseline?
Crystal, I'm going to turn it to you because I know you'll be more excited probably than I am. But yes, there's a lot of traditional ways that are out there, but we're doing some in the guidebook. You're going to see some more of the traditional how-to tools, but you might want to talk about some of the new modern ways of doing digital threads. I won't steal your thunder.
Oh, no worries. No worries. Yes. So as Nick said, the guidebook today does have that, what I call a manual approach to stabilizing a common process. Okay. In order to work the recipe, I guess you might say, right? But today, what we're actually doing to invigorate those thoughts and innovation is actually using data within models. The models, the architecture, the requirements that are set forth. And those requirements are really all about, what does a user want to see? Right? We combine agile processes, which is user stories. And it's really boiled down to just like the question, how do I provide innovation into the technology? Well, you do that up front by saying, I am a user and I want to see X, Y, and Z in this. And we document that, and then we target it for whatever that capability is that will bring them that functionality. And by doing that, configuration management starts tracking and connecting the information so that as the systems engineers are actually designing that targeted system or product, right? Whatever this item is that will serve the purpose, then that information pulls forward within the team as each of the different functional areas within the naval construct we have, like we mentioned, program management, right? They have oversight to make sure they have money to do this, that they have the opportunity to do this, i.e. a schedule, right? Is there a customer that's currently looking for this? It's the why is it important? And then as we move forward, we have logistics. So then we have those special folks that come in and say, how do I support this? How will it work? How long will it work? Can we sustain the life in this so that if we do put this out based on what the user's looking for, is this going to have a conflict with anything that we currently have out? Or is this in addition to complement what we have, right? So putting all of that together, configuration management is the act of, like, I'm going to go back to grandma time, right? Pull out the needle and thread and start sewing the fabric together. Configuration management does that. It makes sure that everything that's being done is sewn together so that we can see every aspect and every impact that this does to any other product that we are currently working.
That's incredible, and I think those are great examples. You made sense for a guy like me who understands how to cook, but doesn't understand everything in the Navy. And then you also explained some actual real life examples. I think that's really important to pay attention to. So I'm going to kind of hopefully lay a softball for you. How do I learn more about configuration management?
Oh, you know, I have been in this world for so long that I could probably sit here for like 2 to 3 hours and take you through the depths of the earth, right? but I do have mercy. And I know sometimes, I'll be perfectly honest, sometimes configuration management, if you really don't understand the value of it, it is the most boringest subject ever, because you have no understanding of the opportunity and the benefits, right? So yes, if you want to know more about configuration management, I would say you definitely want to reach out. You definitely want to look up the definitions, and really just to give you a high level so that you know what you're working with. It's about the management and planning of your capability and your functionality. It's about identifying what it is that you think you are going to create or make or buy, right? It's controlling the configuration. So let me go back to that analogy of the living room, right? Okay. You go out and you go buy a couch. Well, you're looking at a 2-seater, as they call a love seat, or you're looking at a 3-seater. It's a sofa. Well, you buy the sofa and you bring it home, not realizing it doesn't fit on the wall because you didn't do the measurements, because you didn't do the systems engineering portion properly. But in addition, you didn't have your technical data, i.e., how big is my wall? What size couch can I actually put on that? Right? So for the Navy, it's like that. So we're trying to control the configuration. So you bring home this 3-seater. You're like, yeah, this isn't going to work. I need to make a change. I need to go back to the store. I need to get a 2-seater so it'll fit. Right?
That's rework.
That's right. That's rework. And that's why we want CM.
Every time the mechanic's like, sorry, you got to bring your car before I can give you that estimate for the oil change, because every filter's a little different. You'd be like, what?
Right.
But, I mean, people get used to it after a while too, and it might be, but that doesn't mean it has to be the norm. So you just take it for granted a lot of times out there. So yeah, people got to learn more about it. And yeah, it is kind of, I have to laugh over it is the most boring thing when you take it at the highest level until you start peeling back to go, what happens if I don't have it?
Yes. Oh, and I have a
wonderful on Craigslist real cheap.
Let me tell you, I have a wonderful brief on what? So you don't want CM? Let me tell you, it's all about the backward psychology of you really need configuration management. It's like, oh, you don't want to identify things you have. Okay, don't do CM. Oh, you don't want to control what you have. Don't do CM. Oh, is there, let me see, is this the actual up-to-date item, or is this a throwaway? This is something that's end of life. This is something that you can't use anymore. How do you know the difference between the two, right? How do you know that your sofa's new or it's been recycled? Right?
Right? Hey, reupholster's not bad.
Right? But you'd want to know that, and the same thing with the verification and validation. And that's where, okay, did I get the right sofa? Is it fit on the wall? And can we use it here? And that's all part of the 5 elements of CM, as people call.
Yep. Well, I'm glad you said that if you get the wrong sofa, you have to go back to the store, because I probably would have just taken a hacksaw to it and just like, what?
You can remove a cushion, right? It's not a big deal.
Yeah. It's like making a convertible car.
Hey, that's not to say we don't do things like that, man. You buy something, we do modify.
No, definitely. So we got one more question here before we go. Is from Ace Desai or Desi. I might slaughter your name. Sorry, Ace. Are there any problems or solutions that are needed within the configuration management playbook space? Now, do you guys have you guys laid out problems and solutions in the playbook?
So the playbook will walk you through how it has a combination of activities and tasks. So what are things that need to get done versus what do you do to get those things done, right? And then it shows if you need to understand this is how you would go about doing it. I would tell you that the current update that's going on is taking that manual approach and automating it. Okay. So we're in the process of updating that playbook to automate according to our digital connections between all of the different functional or different data sets that describe what these things are, so that when someone looks at it, they know how the information is used, instead of trying to pick up a bound copy book and try to read through page by page by page, right? It's just like the internet. You go in there and you just look up information that you need, and it will show you what it is. So we do need a little bit of work on it, but for the beginners, it's a real good beginner read manual guidebook.
That's fantastic. And for those that aren't aware, I threw the link on the screen. We'll also put it in the comments. You can get to the playbook through this link. It is CAC required right now, but definitely check it out. There's a lot of good information in there. You'll see some of the other NavalX playbooks there. Nick, Crystal, what else do we want people to know before we go about CM, what you do, or who you are?
Yeah, my takeaway is just don't think of it as that boring process. I'm hoping this is part of this session here that people understand it's a core thing to be able to understand what we have and try to accelerate. Doesn't matter if you're doing it for the Navy, for anything. It's one of those core underlying things, and this guidebook will help give that audience the how-to recipes. Don't worry about processes and all that other stuff. There's plenty of that stuff out there. Get into it and actually start executing. Start figuring out what it means to you and how you apply it within your business, not just CM, but across the boards.
Fantastic.
Absolutely. And that's where the enterprise approach comes in. So this is why I'm looking for a single uniformed approach, so that I can get through the different functional areas to support them, and then be able to provide an integral part of the requirements and the design of these items. And the people are the most important part of this, because without the people, this does not just magically happen. There's no magic berry, right? I know people have called me a lot of things, but but I keep trying to tell them, it's all about them. So, so I'm available after if anybody needs, questions. They have further questions after. Like I said, I've been in for a long time. I have a lot of industry partners that I work with for configuration management. So I have both the industry side of commercial business, like Nick said, across the enterprise CM, as well as the military experience. Over.
Fantastic. And I got a couple thank yous from folks. Thanks for discussing IV and V, which maybe that's something that you know what that means, because I don't.
Yes.
Verification, validation. That was one of those other acronyms that we throw around all the time.
That's why you guys are the experts, and I'm just the guy that talks to you.
Actually, may I say.
And another thank you from Allison for sharing your knowledge. It's always great getting to look at different parts of the Navy. So we do appreciate you guys' time, and reach out. Like Crystal said, reach out to them. She is the expert. Nick, I think, is an expert in a couple things as well too. He's got some value if you want to reach out to him too.
Oh, absolutely.
Feel free, yeah. No,
a little bit.
I turn it over. I know a little bit. I'm not in that level of depth.
So yeah, reach out to them. Or if you don't know how, or if you can't find a way, reach out to NavalX. I'll put you in contact with Crystal and Nick. We'll make sure to get all your questions answered. Check out the other playbooks we've got out there from NavalX. And Crystal, Nick, don't hang up. Everyone else, have a great day.